Next on Investigative Report. Gabby Petito versus Kian McLaughlin. Why do missing women garner more public sympathy? In the summer of the year 2021, two visitors of Grand Teton would go missing in the boundaries of this 485 square mile national park. Two would go missing, but only one would garner massive land, air, lake, and foot searches by Forest Service officials and the FBI. A lesser concern for Mr. Kian McLaughlin's case would be assisted by forest officials and his parents, who flew in from Ireland to personally canvass the forest. This minimal effort would be nowhere near the degree that federal, local, and state officials who spared no expense or man hours to locate Mrs. Petito. Tonight, we ask, what kind of message are we sending to our young men when we insist that beauty has more sympathy when your life is on the line? This analogy was never more prevalent when officials were able to locate 9 other bodies missing during the search for Mrs. Petito. And now, Gabby Petito versus Kian McLaughlin. Why do missing women garner more public sympathy? It would appear that most major news and print outlets go into overdrive coverage when a woman is missing who is attractive. And many would argue that those media outlets place more emphasis on white women over women of color. But this is not one of those stories, although this bias does exist, as testified by the late Gwen Ifill, who coined the phrase missing white woman syndrome. Now, the dictionary online Wikipedia defines her definition as a term that is used by social scientists and media commentators in reference to the media coverage, especially on television, of missing person cases involving young, attractive, white, upper middle class women or girls compared to the relative lack of attention towards missing persons that are women who were not white, of lower class and socioeconomic, or of missing men or boys, which this case concerns.
So far I've gone 650 feet and just over a kilometer for 25 minutes, which isn't amazing, but the start of the season, pretty unfit. But thinking of doing couple of videos of this season, the exploration of this season. Where are we going to go? What are we going to do? If you're a skit skier, snowboarder, I don't think I'm going to impress too much, but by all means, have a little look. Share, do as you please. Let's go.
Although the term was coined in the context of missing person cases, it is sometimes used for coverage of other violent crimes. Charlton McWayne defined the syndrome as white women occupying a peerless role as violent crime victims in news media reporting. He said they would be right there at the top. Now, this phenomenon has led to a number of tough-on-crime measures that were named for white women who disappeared and were subsequently found harmed. And if you've seen the national coverage as well as national government in Washington, D.C., there is a bill drawn up relatively fast. In addition to race and class, factors such as supposed attractiveness, body size, and youthfulness have been identified as unfair criteria in the determination of newsworthiness in coverage of missing women. Now, news coverage of missing black women was more likely to focus on the victim's problems, such as abusive boyfriends, criminal history of the woman, or drug addiction, while coverage of white women often tended to focus on their roles as, say, mothers, daughters, students, and contributors to their communities. So in one category, it was deemed to be much nicer, more decent person. But as I alluded to a minute ago, this story does not focus on racial differences for concern, but gender differences. We wish to highlight why it is that two identical disappearances on a government-owned property involving the same race, now the same race individuals, Caucasians, could garner very different levels of concern. So in this case, we're not talking about the difference between two opposite colors, two opposite genders, but of the same race. This story involves the underbelly of the media industry, which panders to society's emotions when it comes to the missing. I would suggest that if you strip out the fact that murder occurred in the case of Mrs. Petito, now for sure she was murdered, if you strip that out, you would have the makings of a grotesque double standard in a so-called equal society in America. Now, in fact, even if you account for her life being taken by this cowardice act by Mr. Laundrie, we still as a society would not move on to a typical murder in this particular fashion. We would not do it. When somebody gets murdered in your local community, the whole United States does not come out to support finding that person. You see, for if we did, there would be no place to hide for the average murderer. And this is why crimes go unsolved. Take, for example, that the FBI, or the Federal Bureau of Investigation, was activated to support local police departments across the entire United States in search of Mrs. Petito as a victim and Mr. Laundrie as a victimizer. Now, take into account that millions of people, like I said, literal millions of people who watched their television were activated to look for this woman in regions that she or her killer had never occupied. So when you've seen this on your national news, CNN, Fox, whatever it may be, you looked in your neighborhood and saw if you've seen this particular guy. He never was there. And this is why we are comparing these two individuals as a marker to all other cases where women or girls go missing in America as compared to when men or boys go missing in the exact same city and exact same square mile radius. Investigative report has looked into the missing person cases that have either been featured on national media or have gone viral since the speed of the modern day internet. So in the past we did not have the internet. So everything had to go based on TV and the news. But now things move at the speed of light. You see, we found that most of these cases involved a mere form of disappearance. That is to say that every time your local or national media featured a case of a missing girl or woman, keep this in mind, there is an equal case of a missing boy or man that they chose not to feature that occurred most likely on the same day, in the same town, within the same district, but was not featured. Because there is sizzle when you sell that a female has been injured as a victim. Take, for example, the case of when Elizabeth Smart went missing in the year 2002. The media machine went into overdrive for each and every year of her absence. Even when she was located, she became the hit of the media circus that would boost their ratings until the story turned lukewarm. So when it doesn't have as much traction, it doesn't mean anything to them. So these not as much as missing person cases, these are media-driven cases. But did you know that a little boy also went missing the same year that you probably never heard of? Now, although he was featured in his local television news media, his name is Julian Hernandez. But I bet you never heard of that name. You see, Julian Hernandez was located 13 years after his disappearance, 13 years to the date. He was found safe and sound as authorities discovered that it was his estranged father that had kidnapped him in the first place at the age of 5 years. Now, the same year that the previous girl was missing, he was missing. But it shows you that it fell through the cracks when it came to just checking out the father in an adjoining state. The only way that either Julian Hernandez or the general public discovered his whereabouts was because he filed his college admission form, at which time he discovered that he was in the system as a missing person. Now, you can't get any stranger than that. So the whole time, even though he's in another state with his father, he's in school, nobody looks for this person. Now, in the case of the Teton National Park disappearances, Mr. Kean went missing on June 8th of 2021, a full 2 months before Mrs. Petito was reported missing on September the 11th of 2021. Now, if you do the math, this is a full 95-day gap between the two, with the latter date eclipsing the former in concern and resources in the search. So in one particular case, in her case, there was thousands, literally millions of people across the United States who wanted to help, and the money was poured out. Now, Mrs. Groyan, Kean's mother, explained her son to the media as being drawn to the park because he loved the outdoors. She goes on to say Kean was a very outgoing, friendly, and sociable kind of guy. He was there in Wyoming for 2 years, where he was a snowboard instructor in the winter and worked in local bars in the summer. So he was no stranger to that park. If this particular man comes up missing, there must be something behind it, just like it was in the Petito case. Now, she goes on to say, from everybody's point of view, we know he went missing in the mountains, that something tragic happened. And park rangers have put up posters like these in Grand Teton, and minimal search parties are still looking for his red iPhone, his red watch, his sunglasses, and a silver chain to this date, and have come up empty. Now, as I mentioned before, it will be almost 3 months later before Gabby Petito was reported missing on September the 11th after she did not return from a months-long cross-country trip with her fiance, Brian Laundrie. So they chased her disappearance to the park, but yet he disappeared in the park. In response to all of the media attention over this young woman's disappearance, even celebrities would begin to weigh in on the coverage. Some celebrities would do it positively, some celebrities would do it negatively. Now, the rapper 50 Cent commented on the disappearance of Mrs. Petito in an Instagram article discussing other missing people who have been found dead in the hunt for Gabby Petito, because it was 9 other people who were found while they were hunting for her. Now, 50 Cent says, and I quote, "So nobody was looking for the other 9 motherfuckers." That's his words. He said Gabby got everybody's skeletons coming out. End quote. Now, what 50 Cent was referencing at the time was the 9 additional bodies found during Gabby's disappearance. Now, and many questions on why authorities aren't giving the same concern to those cases that it gave to her, and to the others who have been reported missing before her and after her. You notice when these cases go as solved, the media machine turns off. Yet people go missing in the United States every day of the week. Now, we dug into the story of the missing through a Sun report, and here is a timeline of the other bodies recovered during the hunt for Gabby Petito. The first body was located and searched for the pair would be in Alabama. Earlier sightings in September of 2021 had Laundrie in Mobile, Alabama, according to local news media. Now, investigators were chasing down dozens of tips from people who believed they saw Laundrie or someone, I said, who looked a lot like him in that particular area. And to add fuel to the fire, a body was found in a dumpster next to a Walmart in Tillman's Corner, which was a suburb of Mobile. Now, many speculated that the body was Laundrie's, but police later revealed the body was identified as a homeless man. First strikeout. Already in Mobile, Alabama, long distance away where her body's going to be discovered. But the search is across the United States. Now, the second and third bodies were found together. They were located in a search for the pair would be in the state of Utah, nowhere near Alabama. In August, newlywed couple Kylene Schultz, 24 years of age, and Crystal Turner, 38 years of age, were found shot to death near Moab in the South Mesa area of LaSalle Mountains. Now, while the discovery of Schultz and Turner's bodies happened before Petito's body was discovered, it was speculated that the incidents might have been connected, because they were trying to connect the dots in every body that they found leading up to this. Maybe somebody else did it besides her boyfriend. However, investigators later revealed neither cases was connected, and the search for Petito and Laundrie resumed. So the national campaign to find the pair, especially her, resumed. Now, the fourth body found in the search for Gabby was in Wyoming, the state of Wyoming. On September 28, teams with the Teton Search and Rescue discovered a body at the base of Teton Pass in Wyoming. Now, in the frantic search for Petito following her suspicious disappearance on August 27, rescuers were able to find the body of Robert Bob Lowry, age 46 at the time, of Houston, Texas. Now, unfortunately for him, Lowry died by suicide from a gunshot wound to the head. Now, this was according to the Teton County coroner. So once again, you find the body of somebody who is not him because you were not searching before. Now, the fifth body found in the search for Gabby was in California, yet another state. So following the nationwide search for Petito, interest reignited for a case out of California with 30-year-old Lauren Cho. Now, she disappeared in the Yucca Valley area 2 months prior. Cho was last seen on June the 28th of that year when she walked away from a rental property in an 8600 block of Bryn Mawr Trail, according to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. So she was reported missing, but they did not go after her until this happened to Petito. On October 9th, human remains were located in the rugged terrain of the open desert and were positively identified as Cho, according to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. Yet we find another body that is not Petito, and a body that we were not going to look for if it were not Petito. Now, the sixth body located in the search for Gabby was found on the Blue Ridge Parkway. These particular remains were discovered the same day as Cho's body by National Park Service rangers on the Blue Ridge Parkway in Virginia. Now, the parkway leads to two particular national forests. The body was identified as 33-year-old Joshua Calderon, and his death is being investigated as a homicide. So we can't solve homicides before she is missing. Maybe we can do this now. The seventh body was found in the search for Gabby was in Wyoming as well. The body of another missing Texas man was recovered on October the 24th in Grand Teton National Park, the same park where the body of Petito would be located. So now we're focusing it to the park. Mr. Jared Hembry's body was located near All Hill in the eastern part of the park after a search that included more than 80 personnel. 80 personnel that was not looking for him, but was looking for her. His vehicle was located at the Game Warden Point parking area in the eastern part of the Grand Teton. Now, on September the 19th, 2021, Gabby Petito's body was unfortunately found and recovered after a joint operation by the FBI, the National Park Service, U.S. Forest Service, Teton County Sheriff's Office, and Jackson Police Department. That many agencies. Her body was located near an underdeveloped camping area along the border of Grand Teton National Park. The remains were hidden in a remote northern Wyoming campsite in Utah near where Gabby and Laudry had visited days earlier. So if they had went to where they had stayed at, they might would have found her body quicker than going across the entire United States. Now, 1 month later, on October 20th, 2021, the partial remains of Brian Laudry were found in Florida's Calton Reserve after more than a month of searching for Laudry, who was declared a person of interest in Petito's disappearance before her body was found in Wyoming.
You're watching MNN, the Men's Channel.
Now, although Grand Teton authorities could close the case of Mrs. Petito, Mr. Kian's body or whereabouts are still unknown 1 year later after his disappearance, even to this day, without any national attention or equivalent national searches. But I would bet that before we brought you this story to your attention, you would never have heard of Mr. Kian, any more than you would have the young missing child Julian Hernandez. There's no way, because these two are of male origin. Now recently, Mrs. Goya, Kian's mother, who was most concerned about the disappearance of her son, she returned this year to Wyoming to mark the 1 year anniversary of her son's disappearance. Now, in an attempt to refocus search efforts as a mother, so she wants the Park Service to continue just the way they did for Petito to search for her son. As a mother of the missing, I am sure that her son's gender does not qualify to denote the kind of value she places on his person or make him less important to be found as a human being. Now, Kian McLaughlin, aged 27 years at the time, was last seen at Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming on Tuesday, the 8th of June, 2021. So if you were there, his car was later found parked near Lupine Meadows Trailhead at the national park. Now, we close now with a personal plea from his mother that searchers would keep up and continue their hunt for her son, at least for her son's remains. If you or anyone else have any information, please call the National Park Service at Grand Teton on the number on your screen, which is 307-739-3399. Thank you.
So Kian is my son. He's 27, and he's been missing here in the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming since June 8th. And we're appealing for people, anybody who's been here on June 8th or a couple of days after, if they've seen him, if they'd look at his pictures, if they'd look at videos, he might be in the background. Kian very outgoing guy, loved the outdoors. He was living here for 2 years. He had dual citizenship, and so he was working as a snowboard instructor in the winter and in the bars in the summer. An outgoing guy, like if you met Cian, he'd stop and have a chat. You know, he was loved by all his friends. He had a lot of friends in Ireland and in the US as well. And yeah, he was living the life. You know, Cian was living the life. So his car was obviously seen here on June 8th, and the Rangers, despite the Rangers' massive search, I think they've done over 5,000 hours, and we still have had no luck in finding anything. He's 6 foot tall. He's tattoos. He was wearing a white t-shirt, shorts, and he had a bottle of water. So it was a day hike for sure. He was well versed in the mountains. He grew up hiking with me and my mum and dad and my brother. He used to go to Chamonix and hike in the mountains, so well versed with equipment, gear. So we are assured it was a day hike, that he was possibly went off trail. And that time of year, although it's June, it's spring here, so there was the weather was really, really warm, and the melt off from the snow. So all of the waterfalls were gushing. There would have been melt underneath ice. So it's tricky, you know, it really is a tricky time of year. You're just unsure of what the terrain is really when the melt has been so much at that time. So again, we're appealing to people to have a look through their pictures, their videos. If they saw Cian, there's a video of Cian we have on social media, #FindCian, and also bring Cian home. So my hope is to, it's not a rescue, it's a recovery, but I'd like to bring him home. You know, I know he's up there somewhere.